DSTV, television reloaded.
Good morning and thank you for joining us on Issues and Answers. I'm Josephine Eimihe. This morning we'll be looking at hepatitis, and tomorrow happens to be the World Hepatitis Day. And some of us are not even aware of hepatitis, but it's with us and it's killing a lot of persons day, monthly, weekly, yearly. And this morning we'll be looking at it. And what is hepatitis? Do you know your status right now? And how do you go about it? Do they have vaccine for it? These are questions we'll be looking at. I heard they have different strains. What are the strains? Which one is more deadlier? This is what we'll be looking at this morning on Issues and Answers. And we have experts that will be talking to us on this disease so that we'll not fall victim of it. And this morning we have a consultant gastroenterologist, University of Benin Teaching Hospital. She's Dr. Mrs. Rose Ugiaibe. Welcome, madam.
Good morning, dear Sato, and thank you for having me.
All right. We have a popular guest with us. She's a regular guest with us. We have Roslyn, or there's popularly known as Madam Erica, Erica for Health and Community Development. You're welcome, madam.
Good morning, Flossie, and good morning.
Did I hear Flossie? Just all right, never mind. Maybe I look Flossie this morning. All right, let me come to the consultant. What is hepatitis?
Yes, let me start by saying that I'm here this morning representing University of Benin Teaching Hospital and another society for gastroenterology and hepatology in Nigeria. I'll answer your question. You know, we're here to talk about hepatitis, and I would like to say that every 28th day of July we celebrate World Hepatitis Day, and the essence of it is to raise awareness on viral hepatitis. By that we mean inflammation of the liver caused by hepatotropic viruses. And this inflammation of the liver can lead to different diseases like liver cirrhosis, liver failure, and liver cancer. So to go to your question, what is viral hepatitis? It is inflammation of the liver caused by hepatotropic viruses. There are so many viruses that cause problems with the liver. But when we say viral hepatitis, the reference is to some particular viruses. 5 of them are clinically important, and they include hepatitis A, B, C, D, and E. So why hepatitis A and E will cause acute viral hepatitis, the other ones will cause both acute and chronic. We say hepatitis is acute when it does not last beyond 6 months, and that happens because it's self-limiting. And so I'll just leave that, then go to chronic. And both cause chronic hepatitis. We say hepatitis is chronic when it persists beyond 6 months. And this is problematic in the sense that when it stays in the body beyond 6 months, it poses a lifelong threat of liver cirrhosis, which may progress to liver failure and then liver cancer. I talked about hepatitis D, but you would note that I'm not saying much about it. That's because hepatitis D on its own is an incomplete virus. It cannot thrive on its own. It has to be with hepatitis B, either as super infection, in which case somebody has hepatitis B and then gets infected with hepatitis D, or co-infection, in which the individual gets both hepatitis B and D at the same time. I think it is good to mention that the disease caused by this chronic hepatitis is silent and unrecognized by both the sufferer of the disease and even health practitioners. And before they start presenting with symptoms, it has already reached an advanced stage. And this also emphasizes the need for testing. Except an individual does the test, it cannot really tell at the initial stages. You can't say, neither the individual nor the doctor can tell that this individual has hepatitis.
All right, Madam Erica, we are aware of HIV/AIDS, which you always talk about.
But and even cancer.
But most persons are not aware of this hepatitis. So what are you doing? What can be done to ensure that people are aware of this disease, and how should they go for the test?
They just go to lab
Okay.
to know about their hepatitis B and C. Like what the doctor have just said, when you talk about liver cancer, the two major parts about liver cancer is what we get into our mouth, and that hepatitis B and C. And when we talk about HIV, of course, once hepatitis is there, hepatitis is a virus of its own, but it's not as but it's deadlier than every other virus I think about, because we know because of this COVID now, we are thinking about looking somewhere else, but something worse is down there. That is hepatitis.
Are they
B and C.
Are they going to put a center up? Like, what are your activities? Do you have activities for tomorrow?
No, it's the doctors.
Okay, but no, because we know you about this creating awareness.
Yes.
So when it comes to awareness, we always come to you.
Yes.
So you said the doctors are doing something,
Yes.
not you this time around.
No.
All right. Okay. Let me come to
So
you.
every 28th day of July, we celebrate World Hepatitis Day. And like I said, the essence is to raise awareness on viral hepatitis. And the theme for this year's celebration is Hepatitis Can't Wait. And the theme is apt because one person dies from hepatitis every 30 seconds. So even in the face of current COVID-19 crisis, we cannot wait to act on viral hepatitis. So we're calling on the government, on international organizations, training institutions, private sectors, community, and people suffering from viral hepatitis. We're saying let us all work together.
All right, before we go to that calling for them, so people don't know about the symptoms, they don't know about the cause. So how can one know that you have this thing, but what are the symptoms to look out for?
The symptoms of viral hepatitis, at the initial stages, they are asymptomatic. By that we mean it's silent, they don't come with symptoms. By the time they start presenting with symptoms, it has reached an advanced stage, and we don't want to wait till that time. And the symptoms that they may present with at this time include jaundice, yellowness of the eyes, we call it jaundice. Then the abdomen may become swollen, and the legs too may become swollen. The liver itself may become shrunken in liver cirrhosis, and it may even get hard and very big in hepatocellular cancer. I noticed that you were asking her about activities that we have. I want to just mention to the public that University of Benin Teaching Hospital will be screening people free.
Okay.
There's free screening exercise on the 29th of July, that's on Thursday, at GPC, starting from 8 a.m. So we're inviting them to come, because looking at an individual, you can't really tell whether the person has hepatitis. It's the test that we tell.
Okay. Yeah. All right, what are the causes? How can one contract this hepatitis?
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. So transmission of hepatitis from one person to another occurs by two broad means. The first one that we like to talk about is vertical transmission, and by vertical we mean from mother to child. And I'd like to mention that that's the predominant route of transmission with hepatitis B, from mother to child. It might interest you to know that 90% of persons who get hepatitis B infection from their mothers progress to chronic infection. So this is a very important means of transmission. Another means is broad group, is the horizontal. So if people remember how HIV is transmitted from one person to another, it is easy to remember how hepatitis is transmitted. So from one child to another child, it may happen. From one adult to another adult through unprotected sexual intercourse, it can happen. Sharing of sharps and needles. Some people are drug addicts. Being a drug addict is a problem. By the time you now share needles with other persons and one of them has hepatitis, it can easily be transferred from one person who has it to the other person. Then, of course, I think it's a good time to talk about blood transfusion. That is in our own domain. We always screen our blood before giving to individuals. If that blood has hepatitis, it can be transferred from one person to the other. Even organs that are used for transplants, if those organs have hepatitis, you can transfer hepatitis from one person to the other. Then our traditional health medical practitioners, they do a lot of things. Some of them are invasive, like circumcision. The instruments they use, if these are contaminated, if you use an instrument to circumcise a child who has hepatitis, and you do not sterilize after that procedure, you can transmit this infection from one person to the other. Then body piercing, tattooing, these are some of the ways that it can be transmitted from one person to another. Then of course, sharing of personal belongings. For the men, hair clippers, razor blade, even nail cutters. You can transmit hepatitis from one person to the other. These routes of transmission apply to both B and C. The route of transmission for A and E, they are different. That one is ingestion of contaminated water and contaminated food, or drinking of contaminated water.
You mean contaminated food can still lead to hepatitis?
Yes, there's a different type of hepatitis, A and E. They are not as important as B and C. B and C are more important because they are more, and it's chronic. When we say chronic, it means it's going to persist, and the threat that it poses is the problem: liver cirrhosis, liver failure, and liver cancer.
Okay.
But,
okay. Continue, please.
Yes, but the good thing about hepatitis B is that it is preventable.
All right.
Yes, by vaccination. And we found that universal vaccination in childhood, at birth, universal vaccination at birth, is effective, is cost effective in a country like Nigeria, where we say the endemicity is high. Nigeria is a country of hyper or high endemicity for hepatitis B. 8.1% of people in Nigeria have hepatitis B. And if we look at the 206 census, which national census, which translates to a population of 206 million people, it means that in our country, Nigeria, with the 206 population, about 170, no, that's for hepatitis C. Sorry, maybe I should just take that again. For hepatitis B, the incidence is 8.1%. 117 million people, thank you, 17 million people have hepatitis B infection. And for these people, the about 506 million of these people will die from the complications of the disease.
All right. We heard about this fluid, liquid, like this kissing. One can transmit hepatitis. Is it true?
Yeah.
Apart from the sexual intercourse.
Yes, kissing, those fluids, yes, can transmit infection, but they are not as efficient as blood or blood products. Yeah.
Talking about the vaccine, how can one get the vaccine? Apart from this, you talk about mother and child during childbirth from their tender age. An adult, for instance, that want to prevent this, how can that person access the vaccine?
Yes, the thing about hepatitis, like I mentioned, is if you don't do the test, you will not know your status. When you do the test, you know your status. If you are negative, then you should be vaccinated if you were not vaccinated in childhood. So adults should be vaccinated. It's readily available. University of Benin Teaching Hospital has the vaccine. It's given in 3 doses. You give the first dose. After 1 month, you give a second dose. After 6 months, you give the third dose. Then for children, there's a national program on immunization. It's free. It's free for children. So once you have your child in a public hospital, the schedule will be mentioned to you, and you just take your child there. But the problem is with those who do not have their children in these public hospitals. They have to be aware that wherever they have their children, they can come to the hospitals. I'm also aware that some private hospitals give the vaccination, so it's readily available.
Okay, Madam Yureka, let me come to you. We are Nigerians, and we have this fear that what you don't know won't kill you. So people are afraid that, okay, I'm okay now. Immediately you go for text, they will not tell you that there is something. Before you know, the person will start dying. So all you have to tell some persons right now that are afraid to go for knowing their status.
If I come again, ignorance is no excuse as regards health matter. We have to know everything, but we try. Like what the doctor have just said, that all health facilities, starting from primary health care, if you can access your primary health care closer to you, you will get the breakthrough of knowing what is happening. Like what she had just said, not everybody will know where she's just really going to. When you access government facility, you will really know what, like those that are rich, they will say they always go to private. They always go to private hospital. But when you attend the one we call government hospital, which is public, you know what is going on. Like as related to this hepatitis, when you know about HIV, what you just said is just the same thing. The root of HIV, that's also the root of hepatitis B and C. But the only issue there is that it is much worse, it's stronger, it's deadlier than HIV. What's hepatitis? I think according to doctors that once it is there and take the vaccine for hepatitis is there for adults. Like what she said, if you listen to what she had just said, that if you test negative, that means you are not infected. Go for the vaccine. Like vaccine, I also tell people vaccine, being tested negative is not a vaccine that you've taken vaccine. I say, they say I not get and they just still be happy immediately, which means I don't have it. Let me go and do the vaccine. You can go for the vaccine in any of the government hospital. You can even go to vaccine in a BMC. Like I work with BMC, I also go to see CDC specialists. I go to CDC in UBTH. The vaccine is there for everyone to take. So knowing your health matter. Like this vaccine, if you take the vaccine as related to hepatitis, you will not fear that. Because HIV, like I say, if HIV doesn't kill, although it's not HIV we are talking about now, we are talking about hepatitis. Hepatitis is there. Once you take the vaccine and you access the government hospital, they will tell you all about vaccine. If you are a big woman, you don't have knowledge about vaccine, about hepatitis. So we just start having children outside. And by the time you have a child and that child wasn't tested, he wasn't given vaccine, injection at birth. It will now grow up and it will be there. Abi, I lie?
No, you are telling the truth.
All right.
It will be there, and the child will now grow up to be adult, and that time, before you know it, they say now hepatitis. And once hepatitis has been added, they find out that hepatitis is one of the issues. Say, but it's liver cancer. Hepatitis, if it's there, there's no way you can only manage it for some time. So hepatitis is not what you play with. People come to my office and I always refer them to go and do the test. Even if you are HIV positive and you are already aware that you are positive, go for hepatitis test. Once you are negative, it's better you just say, let me go for hepatitis vaccine. There is a vaccine for hepatitis.
Okay. There are a lot of questions going through my mind right now, but yes. I want to ensure that I'm able to put it across. Do this disease, is it killing right now more because of COVID-19 or as it was before? Is it now rampant in the killings or people are now contracting it easier compared to before?
Thank you very much. I think I mentioned when I was introducing that one person dies from this disease every 30 seconds. And we do know that...
Recent statistics.
Yes, every 30 seconds. I don't know, how long have we been here now? So you can imagine the number of people who have died from this disease. In the world as a whole, 2 billion people have hepatitis B infection, both past and current infection. Then 240 million of these people have the chronic infection. And 1.1 million of these will die every year. In comparison, she was talking about HIV. HIV, 40 million people have it. So, and maybe I should also mention that hepatitis B is 100 times more infectious than HIV and 10 times than hepatitis C.
All right, talking about, let's look at the causes. Apart from sharing of fluid, do food cause it, or the kind of liquid we take, alcohol, whatever? Does it kind of predisposes one to such?
Yes, food is important in causing hepatitis. Thank you so much. but the type is different. Transmission of hepatitis, I mentioned that for A and E, the acute ones can be transferred from one person to another by eating contaminated food or drinking contaminated water. It's not the same for B and C. B and C will have to be through blood transfusion, sexual contact, mother to child. Yes. So then alcohol, you talked about drinking. For a person who has hepatitis and now has liver disease and now takes alcohol, it makes it worse. There's what we call alcoholic liver disease. So it's like adding, should I say, fire now to fuel, or adding fuel to fire. Something is already wrong, then you are doing something else that will make it worse. We discourage that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're talking about, I'm still on fluid, talking about contaminated fluid, water. Can water predisposes one to hepatitis?
Water can predispose to hepatitis.
Are you
but
serious?
The type of hepatitis is what I'm emphasizing.
Okay.
A and E, they are acute. Within 6 months, they will resolve because they are self-limiting on their own. The type that we're really worried about in this World Hepatitis Day that we're talking about now is B and C, because they tend to remain after 6 months. So we say it's chronic.
Okay, let's look at the treatment. Is it like, when you talk about going to the hospital, you look at your pocket, you pause and say, do I have enough money, or should I go for, before I ask for that treatment, I know you're a medical doctor, and some persons will tell you that there are some leaves, herbal, that they can take, and it will just flush it out. I know you will speak differently, but let's be Nigerian for just a moment.
Okay.
And can these herbs, these vegetables, those kind of leaves we have in our forest, can it help one to flush the system, flush the liver?
Thank you. That's a very good question. I thought, okay, what I will do, I will first talk about prevention, then we go to treatment. But the question you're asking me is like asking whether vitamins will help in treating hepatitis. So we get to that later. Prevention. How is hepatitis prevented? I cannot be tired of repeating myself on the points of vaccination. Vaccination is very important because I mentioned that transmission of the disease from mother to child is the predominant route. So vaccination is the best way to prevent hepatitis. That's one. Then, of course,
is it free for adults, or you have to pay?
It's not free for adults, but it's not that expensive.
Okay.
For children, it's free. It's free of charge. Okay. Then health education. What we are doing now, we're letting people know that this disease is real and is deadly. We've tried to talk about the mortality rate, how it's killing people. We need people to be aware. We've tried to mention how one person can transmit it to the other, and the essence is to prevent these risky behaviors. So you need to know about the disease that is real. Then another thing you need to do is to do your test. We can't just see you, look at an individual and you say this person has it or this person does not have it. Many people know their HIV status, but we always ask, how many people know their hepatitis status? So knowing your status is one of the ways to prevent it. You have to go and do the test. When you have done the test, if you are negative, and you've not taken vaccination in the past, whether you are a child, an adolescent, or an adult, then you should be vaccinated. If you are positive, you should be evaluated for treatment. I mentioned that some of our traditional medical practitioners, they use some instruments for persons, like when they are circumcising. Please, let us sterilize this equipment. You never can tell who has hepatitis. I'm pretty sure they don't screen these individuals who come to them, so they don't know. One of the ways to prevent it is when you are finished with one individual, sterilize the equipment before you use it for another. Then some people are injection drug users or they are drug addicts. Apart from taking the drug, which is bad on its own, they share needles with their friends. This should be discouraged. Then people who also inject people genuinely, please do not share needles. Needles should not be recycled. They are quite cheap. Then sharps. The way we dispose our sharps, very important. You may use a sharp for an individual that has hepatitis, and you don't discard it appropriately, safely. Another person may come and get injured or wounded by that sharp, and may get that infection. So these are some of the ways that we can prevent hepatitis. Another one that I need to talk about is the ABC, the way we say it for HIV. ABC of prevention. Those who are not married should abstain from sex. That's the A. Then promiscuity is another way that we've noticed. People don't restrict themselves to their partners. Be faithful to your partner. When you do that, you also limit the spread of hepatitis. Whether a man or a woman, be faithful to your partner. Then C, if you must have sex with somebody who already has hepatitis, it must be with protection, and that's the condom. Then of course we talk about drugs. When a person has hepatitis, he should seek medical care.
Talking about the A, B, C, D, and E, and out of these 5, which of them is more deadlier? Is it the B and all of them? They are deadlier.
They are all bad. B and C are particularly bad. Okay, let me just let you know this. B, for example, if we say that 90% of people who get hepatitis B in childhood become chronic. It's not so with young adults or adolescents. About 50% of them, when they get the infection, they progress to chronicity. But for adults, only 5% of them, 1 to 5%, will become chronic. But for C, 85% of people who get the infection become chronic. They develop chronic hepatitis. It might interest you to know that 10 to 20% of these people will have cirrhosis. Then another 10% of these people will have liver cancer. So it's as bad as that.
Okay. All right. Do you have something to add to it, madam?
In addition to what the doctor has been saying, I always say, no matter how it is, hepatitis B and C is deadly disease, virus.
But it's not a death sentence.
It's not a death sentence because you can prevent it.
Okay.
If you stop taking alcohol, like the other day, what a doctor said was that men die more of this related hepatitis because of this liver issue than women, because men take more alcohol. You cannot stop them. But so when they come to me in my office, we always discuss. Like throughout yesterday, I was with different people talking about one thing about the other. Like this cancer, like this hepatitis B and C. She's saying it's the worst now, but you can't prevent it. It's either you condomize. You can condomize if you are having not many partner, because so we say it's just like as you prevent HIV, just as we shout every day, no matter how it is. If you know that you don't know the status, you cannot see somebody by the face and say this person gets hepatitis, go to hospital. If they come to my office, want to do tests for hepatitis, it's either you go to specialist, go and do the test, go to BMC, or go to teaching hospital. No matter the disease you are, if you know this, the root of it is deadly, but it's still preventable. People die of it every 16 seconds or
30 seconds.
Every 30 seconds, one person die of it. But we are still giving you the option that you can still prevent it. He says it's from mother to child. Then how can that mother prevent it? Accessing government facility. You start from primary health care. Like thank God the other day, the new agency that is handling primary health care now, she has said, the woman there said it is not a ball game again. Primary health care now, they are on ground to start working seriously. If you cannot go access primary health care, maybe primary health care is the best. Go to teaching hospital, go to specialist hospital, and of course the bigger one is BMC. You can go there. We don't have to play with our heads. So you can do the test. If you test negative, according to the doctor, then you can now ask for the vaccine. Because I remember some years ago, people will come to meet me, Madam, if I say I don't get HIV, but I just want to start taking the drug. You can't start taking vaccine, hepatitis. You cannot go say you want for hepatitis vaccine when you don't know your status. So the most important thing as regards all these health challenges, go for test. Know your status and do the needful. If you are negative, you go for the vaccine. If you are positive, you now access the government facility and they will tell you better.
And the University of Benin will be doing free screening on Thursday.
Yes.
So you
Free
just
screening.
go there and access it. Talking about, she said it's not a death sentence, but I want to hear from your mouth as a consultant. Is this hepatitis, whether B, C, or F, is a death sentence?
Of course, it's not a death sentence,
All right.
but it depends on when you present.
Okay.
If you present early, it's not a death sentence. Like we say, hepatitis B is preventable by vaccination and then treatable. But hepatitis C does not have a vaccine, but it can be cured. But the problem is that people may not know their status, and so they continue to live with the disease, and it's quite silent. They don't have symptoms, but they have it, and it continues to progress in them. When they are presenting, it's already in the advanced stage. And when this happens, if they come with cancer, the chances of survival in that situation is very slim. But if they present early, hepatitis B can be prevented, can be treated. That's before it even gets to the body with vaccination. Then if they already have it and they come early, it can be treated, it can be controlled. Hepatitis C on its own, before cancer appears, can be cured. Many people may not know this. It can be cured, but there's no vaccine for it. Then another thing I like to add is pregnant women. Please, we're encouraged to do your test for hepatitis when you are pregnant. If it comes out positive, it can be treated in the third trimester. This will reduce the transmission from the mother to the baby. Then, of course, apart from the vaccination we talked about, there's another injection that can be given to that child, hepatitis B immunoglobulin. So with the injection and the vaccination, it prevents the transmission of this infection from the mother to the child.
How regular should you go for this test? Like one test, can one test just do everything that, oh, I'm free from it and I'm free for life? Or do you have to go and go again?
There is no specific regulations, but you know your lifestyle. If you have done things that are risky, that you did a test today and it's negative, does not mean that next month it will not come out positive.
Yes.
If you get in contact with somebody who has it.
When you pass the risky lane.
Yes, there's no hard and fast rule, but once in a while it's fine.
Okay, as a consultant, what your advice to government concerning in this hepatitis? You told us during the discussion that keys like 30 minutes and a lot of persons. What do you think that government can do to ensure that this disease is not killing people?
What we're asking now from the government or government agencies is that if you look at HIV, it's free. It's treated free of charge in the hospitals. You asked me about treatment for hepatitis B.
I will come to that because
it's on your mind.
Yes.
But I don't know whether this is a good place to talk about the treatment.
Go ahead, please.
What I'm saying, we can have free treatment for hepatitis B and C like we have for HIV. Because even though doing the test may be cheap, vaccination may be cheap, treatment may not be as cheap. Some of the treatment modalities and testing when it has been diagnosed. So that's the aspect we're looking at government to come in and subsidize this. Okay. International agencies, government agencies, if they can come and subsidize it, and if it can even be free, better for all, like HIV. People have HIV today and they don't spend anything from their pockets treating it, but it's not so for hepatitis. And we think if that is done, it will also help in reducing the prevalence.
Okay, that's the treatment you just said that the treatment is quite expensive. If you don't, it can be
expensive
depending on the strain.
Yes, depending on, well, for hepatitis B, for example, you have drugs, you have injections to treat it. The drugs may not be that expensive. It's not as expensive as the injection. But treatment for hepatitis B is lifelong. It's not like for malaria, where you say, okay, you have malaria, take these drugs, after 3 days you're fine. For hepatitis, we look at it like diabetes or hypertension. Treatment may be for life. That's if it's a tablet. But if it's injection, then it's for a period of time, about 1 year. But it's not that cheap. Then for hepatitis C, now we have drugs. Before now, it used to be injections like hepatitis B, but there are drugs now that are very effective, but they are not that cheap.
Okay,
Yes,
Madam
for the
Reka,
common man.
so let's talk about government assistance towards the people. What do you want government, even multinationals, to do? Because some persons would be suffering from this, but the cost of going for treatment can stop them from doing it. So what do you have to say to that?
Early detection saves life. And again, the government, what I think, if I'm asked to say, we should have to start, just as I'm doing it, others can join, creating massive awareness. Not everybody knows. Some don't, like when I'm on air, people start saying, this thing you are talking now, carry and come our riverine area. Like in riverine area, let's join other good people that are doing this work, that asking us to create awareness. There is something we are about to start again now. It's all about women. The doctor came to, we've sat down, we discussed it, but there are places I will go, I will ask them, are you aware of so and so about women? They will say, no, there is nothing like that. I say, okay, I'm talking about patent medicine stores. I will now say, okay, does women come to buy so and so and they start telling you they have so and so? They will say, yes, so they have so many. So we have to create that awareness as regards all this deadly virus. Hepatitis B and C is deadly, but you can prevent it. Like what we eat. Is that for A and C? What we eat.
Yes, A and E.
All the nuts. If we can stop it, we preserve it very well. Because what we are eating now in the market, I'm so sorry about that. Fermenting most of our food with chemicals. It's not all that good. These are the things that gives us health challenges. If we stop all this issue of what we are eating and we start talking about, but some people, they don't want you to start telling them that what they are cooking. Like the other day I saw somebody, madam, this cassava being fermented with carbad. If you ask them to eat out of it, some can even eat because they don't care. So what we are going to do, just as I'll be doing,
That's not the key African man.
we will start creating that awareness, especially like this hepatitis. So it's how you prevent HIV. That is how you can also prevent hepatitis B and C. And for the what we eat, like all the nuts, some of the nuts we eat, if they are bad, throw them away. Like people selling in the market, you know, I belong to those community. I work for community and for health and community. People selling in the market, please stop using what do they call that? Something for rat killer.
Yes, insecticide.
Insecticide
To prevent flies.
Every like meat the other day when I was growing up in Benin, my mommy will tell us, go to the market early because I don't want flies to perch the meat I'm going to eat. But this time around, you will see the meat will even be green. Flies will not near it because they've used something, one thing or the other. We are very close to the market. Even the rice, they will pour rice chemical so that it will not go back. They will beans, they will pour so that this thing will not be there. So we can prevent most of these things. So that is why you see we are going round creating that massive awareness, telling people this is what hepatitis B. Some people, yes, some are really responding, going to specialists, going to teaching, or going to BMC to go for, as the doctor have just said, vaccine. When you are negative today, that does not mean it's vaccine. The only thing that can just help you, once you are negative, which means you don't have it, then you can go for the vaccine. But if you are negative and you pass the risky road lane this morning, in the evening, I'm so sorry. So vaccine is the best thing. And then we tell you the period the vaccine will last. That's all I know. But for you to say, I'm negative, there's nothing, no fear about that. No. You can be negative this morning and in the evening you play the wrong thing, you become positive.
Okay. So what
the
about
only
the
thing-
timeline for the vaccine? Once I take the vaccine, for instance, is it for life, or I
Yes,
need to take it again?
If you take the 3 doses, there are 3 doses.
Okay.
If you complete it, then it's fine. It's only the general public does not need booster dose, but some particular people need booster doses. So the 3 doses of the vaccine is sufficient.
All right, let me come to the mundane now. You are a mother, and you are a doctor, a consultant. What can I do as a mother to prevent such kind of disease around my home? What can I do? Talking about the food, or what should I avoid so that my family will be protected?
Okay, now I think you are asking 2 different questions. One for A and E. Clean water.
Okay.
Clean water will prevent A and E. Food. Your food should be prepared in a very healthy environment. The food items themselves must be very clean, and preservation of this food is important. She was talking about exposing food. Sometimes in the marketplace, you just wonder the way they even keep the items they are selling. They are exposed. Flies come. We say in medicine, the transmission of this disease is fecal-oral. That's feces has entered the food and it goes to the mouth. If you know what I mean. These organisms we are talking about, they are microorganisms. It's not something that you can see with your eyes. So our food items must be well preserved. They must be clean and well kept. Even in the cooking too, the environment has to be very clean. Then the water itself, that's another route of transmission. Clean water. But that water is borehole water does not mean it cannot be contaminated. I know the last time we had this meeting, somebody
Yes.
was talking about even contaminated borehole water. So the water has to be clean, the food has to be clean. Then we talked about sharps. Sharps. You know, children can play with sharps like knives, like razor blades. If one child has it and plays with a blade, of course, perhaps injures himself, and another child takes that same blade, injures himself too, and there's mixing of blood, one person can transmit it to the other. They are children. They don't understand a lot of things. Then sharing of personal belongings too. Of course, we talked about hair clipper. Somebody has hepatitis and another person is using it. That same hair clipper, you can transmit it if there's a cut. Then I'm just looking at you now, looking at your hair and thinking about women. Even in the salon, people go there without their needles, and the people helping them to fix their hair. Some of them may not know that they should not share needles. I make it as a duty to always tell them, please, one needle for one person. When you are done, throw that needle away.
Yes.
You might be fixing somebody's hair and the person has hepatitis and you prick the person. You drop that needle, the next person comes and you say, okay, madam, yeah, let's do yours. And you carry that needle and prick that same person. There is the possibility that you may transmit it from that person to another. So we just keep, when you have used sharps for anyone, dispose them very well, dispose them away so that another person does not get injured with that sharp. Then personal items should belong to each person. Don't share personal items, especially sharps. If one person has it, you can transmit it to the other person.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't contrast it by just coming close to the person, like sneezing, like COVID-19.
No,
all those.
no.
All right.
Sneezing.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Yes.
Ma, do you have you
I
want to
think
ask?
yes, like what the doctors just said. I remember some years ago, after doing while I was doing school run, my car break down the middle of it. Then so people will say, hey, a mechanic rushed to meet us and help me to bring my children, my grandchildren out with the driver. So I came out. So what do I do for this mechanic? Now I thanked him. I told him, I said, supposing this is accident now, just as I can say you had wounds. I say, Mama, so I did how I do to people. I say, okay. Next time, if you want to save anybody, always protect yourself. Do you use disposable hand gloves? He said, but this disposable, he said a doctor friend, a doctor customer gave him disposable hand gloves, the pack. He said, but he doesn't really know what since not the condom. I said, no, when you are walking, especially when you want to rescue somebody that has just, accident and that person is bringing out blood, and I can see you have wounds, you have marks, you will now immediately use, because open wound, and another person getting out blood from our own person, and you don't know who is positive, who is hepatitis B, C positive, and who is HIV positive. If the blood gets to your own wound and you have just been contaminated your own blood, so the best thing is what we are doing now. We will continue to create awareness. Okay. So that awareness, we will always do it, and we've started it. So most of the time when they call me to give a talk outside, at times I go with different things that we can use to tell people we should take care of ourselves. Protect yourself. No matter how serious that issue is, no matter how the virus is, like the COVID-19 that is killing everybody now, doing things outside here and here, but they are still giving us how to prevent it. Are we not?
Yeah. All right. Before I will let the consultant go, we have like shortages of manpower in most of these hospitals, and some persons will tell you that they will go there to assess some of these things you're talking about, even the vaccine, the checkup, is burdensome and is kind of stop people from even going because of even creating the time. Do you think that this kind of the vaccine, the treatment can also be a move towards the primary health centers, because most of these primary, they don't have this kind of facilities? Do you think government can do something so that the load on these teaching hospitals, central hospitals, can be reduced and people can just go there and access it with within the shortable time?
Yes, thank you so much. That's a very good question. I do not think that testing is limited to tertiary health centers.
Okay.
It's very simple to do the test, and it can be done anywhere. And I can assure you, it's readily done everywhere. Most of these hospitals, they do it. When they do it and they discover that a patient has it, they start what they can do.
Any hospital?
Yes, yes, any hospital.
Okay.
Do the test. If it's positive, they can do some other preliminary tests. Then depending on what they find, if it's something beyond their scope, they can now refer. That's what happens, and that's fine. But we on our own, we're trying to, from time to time, we try to invite some of these doctors in these other settings and train them. We train them on how to treat people with this hepatitis, so that if they prefer to go to them instead of coming to us directly, they know what to do.
Both at the primary health care
yes,
centers.
We do training from time to time for them.
Okay, that's a very good one, because I want to hear that, because a lot of persons will tell you, I'm coming from this Uboko village and it's like subsidized at University of Benin. If I go to the next one but since you said that most of these health facility, primary health centers, they are well equipped, according to you for now, to treat that. That's a good one. Before you go,
assess the closest primary health care.
Your last one.
Start from there. Know your status.
Okay.
Know your health status, and do the rightful thing.
All right.
Yes, I think you should know your status. Do your test. If you are negative, be vaccinated. If you were not vaccinated initially, if you are positive, be evaluated for treatment. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for this robust conversation, and it's enlightening, educating, and I believe most of us here, we've gotten something from it, that we have to know our status.
Yes.
That is important. As I could say, this is not the show for, the show for looks. So you just have to, and the earlier you start the treatment, the better for you. It is more, it's cheaper when you go for treatment earlier than when it's like too late. Thank you once again, consultant. I cannot just thank you enough for coming to educate and enlighten us. Tomorrow is World Hepatitis Day. Go and know your status, and the treatment is screening is free. University of Benin Teaching Hospital we'll be doing the screening for Wednesday. You said what time?
Thursday, 8 a.m. at General Practice Clinic.
All right, so just go there and you get your screening. Thank you once again, Dr. Mrs. Rose Ugiagbe. She is the consultant gastroenterologist, University of Benin Teaching Hospital.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Roslyn Odiase, Madam Ireka.
Lady Joe, thank you.
Ireka for Health and Community Development. Thank you for the good work, and the Lord God bless you.
Lady
That was our
thank
show
you.
this morning. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Josephine Eyimihe. Do have a productive and good head day ahead.
EBS TV, television reloaded.